Welcome to part 2 of my review for Paper Mario. Now, I'm not always going to be doing my intro, as I just kind of want to get on with review. In this part, I will be picking up where I left off and will be going more in depth with the Peach segments. The Peach segments can kind of take some agency away from the player in these moments. Thankfully, they don't last too long, because they can feel boring at times. I kind of get it. Like, how is the player supposed to know where to go next? However, they gave us a system with Merlin, who, for a fee, will give the player hints as to what to do next. So it kind of makes the Peach segments unnecessary. Like, sure, Peach is on the inside so she can learn all of Bowser's plans and relay them to Mario. Sounds neat on paper, pun somewhat intended, but it does fall flat in some places. Pun also somewhat intended. Here, let me give you an example. Like the part where you bake a cake to give to Gordon Main Guy. You have to make it as instructed. Wait a full 30 seconds, and if you, happen to accidentally do something wrong, that then becomes a full minute of your time wasted. And for what? Well, to learn that the Star Spirit is being held somewhere in Mount Lava Lava on Lava Lava Island. Not how to get there, and not who's guarding it. Which would, be pretty useful information. Now, as the player, we would go, okay, I guess that's what I gotta figure out. But then it cuts back to where Mario is, and it tells Mario information you, the player, already know. Only for you to go to Merlin in order to be able to get to Chapter 5. And this happens yet again, similarly with Chapter 7 needing to see Merlin before you can actually start the chapter. If we could just go to Merlin and skip all the preamble, it would be quicker and more efficient. And if player is lost, they are most likely go to Merlin to tell them what needs to be done next. Now, yes, the example given might be a very extreme case, but the fact that it happens more than once is bad enough. For Chapter 1, I kinda get it. The player doesn't quite have access to Merlin at this point, so the Peach segment here is necessary. But for every other chapter, it becomes something you should no longer need. Early on, it can be useful to know where to go. However, since Merlin is also very early in the game, and the player knows that if they are ever lost, go visit Merlin. I'm calm. We're calm. Just know that the end of every chapter is a Peach segment. And I think it could have just as easily been cut out. Honestly, didn't think I would have this strong of an opinion with the Peach segments, but my brain said otherwise. Now, after that whole tangent, go back to Toad Town, head south, and jump on the train, start Chapter 2. As for what I actually thought of the first chapter, I'd say it's about middle of the road. Of anything, the highlight of the chapter was definitely the Koopa Bros, and how fun their dialogue and interactions are with the player. Once the train has made its stop, you'll need to pass through Mount Rugged. On your way, you will find and eventually recruit a wandering postman named Parakari. Parakari has 2 overworld abilities. The first being able to carry Mario over gaps that he could not jump himself. Second, if you have a letter that needs to be taken to an NPC, you need to have Para carry out to hand it to them. His battle abilities are Sky Chop, treat it like Mario's jump. Shell Shot, which is a unique one in that while holding left on the stick, an aiming reticle a la Yoshi's Island appears, and when you let go of the stick, he will be shot to where the reticle was aimed, give or take. Airlift will carry out one enemy out of battle if successful. Lastly, Air Raid is a move that hits all enemies on screen. That's pretty much all you need to know there. Once you have traversed Mount Rugged, you should find yourself at Dry Desert. Following the main road will take you to Dry Outpost, or you can explore the very, very vast desert. It is very easily to get lost, and the only thing keeping the player from getting lost is the main road, which will always get you to familiar territory, thankfully. The most important thing in the desert, besides the boss dungeon, which has to be unlocked, is the Oasis. The Oasis has two very important things. First is a super block, which can upgrade one of your party members, making them stronger and giving them a new battle skill. There are also some trees you need to hit in order to get a lemon. Trust me, it's important. Once you have done that, Dry Outpost is the next point of interest. You have your shops, your Toad House for healing. But if you explore one of the back alleys, you can find an enchanter who will give you buffs during a battle at seemingly random intervals, ranging from decreasing the amount of damage you take to potentially doubling EXP. The more expensive a package you buy, the longer the charm will last. At the end of the town is a garbed mouse named Sheik. If you give him some of your items, he will tell you certain things. But if you give him that lemon, you can ask him to meet someone named Mustafa, at which he will tell you to go to the shop and buy a dried shroom, then a dusty hammer. In that order. Once you have done so, you can go up on the roofs and find Sheik again, who turns out is Mustafa. He gives you a stone that will help you find and unlock the boss dungeon. And once there, you do some puzzles, get a shiny new hammer, and you beat the boss. End of chapter. You do peachy things, find out where to go next, all that good stuff. Chapter 2, in my opinion, is a bit worse than Chapter 1. And the largest reason has to do with the less memorable characters and the big, open, bland desert. The best part of the chapter, I hate to say, is probably the ability to get charms from the outpost. It just isn't as good as the first chapter, in my opinion. Not to say that it's bad, just not as good. After backtracking all the way back to Toad Town, a guard toad by the entrance of Forever Forest / Chapter 3 will scream for help after seeing a ghost, or boo in this universe, who then proceeds to invite us to his master's mansion in the depths of the forest. The forest is a spot the difference in order to progress type, where at each entrance you have to look for something different in the environment in order to get to the mansion. Oh wow! A place where one can get easily lost and have to retrace steps in order to progress. It's not like we had a big desert area that had the exact same problem. No, not at all. The problem there exists here too. After quite literally, on occasions, bumbling through the forest to find yourself at a spooky mansion filled with ghosts. That sounds like a great idea for a game concept. Nintendo should really make something like that. You get tasked to reach the top floor in order to speak with the head of the mansion, Lady Bo. After doing a few tasks and getting a brand new pair of shoes, you'll eventually make your way to the top floor and speak with the lady of the manor. She asks that we go and defeat Tubba Blubba, which we were going to do anyways. And to sweeten the pot, so to speak, she has possession of the Star Spirit that happened to escape, but got lost in the forest and recaptured. Ultimately, the mission is unchanged. Go defeat boss, get Star Spirit. Not much to tell you there. Luckily, the lady is gracious enough to lend us her aid, and Bo joins the party. Her overworld ability turns you invisible and lets you pass through certain objects. Her battle abilities include Smack, which slaps an enemy's silly a few times. Out of Sight, spelled O-U-T-T-A, makes Mario invulnerable for that turn, and Bo becomes unable to use until next turn. Spook, which can scare some enemies away from battle. And finally, Fan Smack, which is just a stronger version of her smack attack. Make your way through Gusty Gulch, enter boss dungeon, find enemies, solve puzzles, and figure out how to defeat the so-called invincible Tubba Blubba. Then, boss fight. I forgot to mention that each time you collect a Star Spirit, they will give Mario a new Star Power, which has its own resource and action. Just figure I would mention that since I've neglected to do so in the previous chapters. Beach segment, yada yada, return to Toad Town. Chapter 3 is at least a bit better than Chapter 2 in my opinion. Its largest saving grace is that I really like Bo and the mansion. If it weren't for them, I'd say it's about on par with Chapter 2. Now, for the part that I have been dreading, because it is now time to talk about Toad Town, and for good reason. Toad Town has many sections, and I will divide into hub areas for simplicity. Star Hub is the area of Toad Town with the big star, / where the game first opens up. Toad Town North, Toad Town South, Toad Town Central, Toad Town Shopping District, or West as I might call it sometimes, and Toad Town Port. Let's start from the top. Star Hub contains the first shopping place, which contains some many early game items. One of the buildings there has a know-it-all Toad, where if you talk to him, he might tell you various facts and secrets that you might not have otherwise known about. The last utility of note in this area is the dojo, where you can test your mettle against its practitioners and master. Toad Town North contains Merlin's Hut, a post office, a rest house, entrance to Chapter 6, and Bat Shop. I shouldn't have to explain what these do, as most are self-explanatory, and I ranted about Merlin. Toad Town South contains the train station, a game room, and Little Oink Farm. The most interesting of which is the Little Oink Farm. It's interesting to say that how it works is that you pay 10 coins for a capsule machine to pop out a little oink. You can have 10 little oinks in the pen at any given time. If you try to get an 11th, the first will leave, and depending on the type of oink, will drop a specific item. Noteworthy oinks are silver and gold respectively, which can drop jam and jellies and ultra shrooms that can restore 50 FP and 50 HP respectively. Toad Town Central contains the entrance to Forever Forest, a pipe that leads to Toad Town Underground, and a chef toad who will cook some of your items and turn them into potentially better ones. The most important thing here is the pipe that leads you underground. Here you can get some items, badges, some upgrade blocks, and even shortcut pipes to places you have already been. My tip is to explore it whenever you gain a new utility, i.e. a new partner or a new hammer or boot upgrade. The shopping district, or Toad Town West, has a shop with better options than Star Districts and the entrance to Chapter 4, which is the section coming up. And finally, Toad Town Port has Club 64 and the entrance to Chapter 5. So, why bring this up now? Well, I will have to bring that up in the next part. So, in the next part of my review for Paper Mario, we'll be diving in to Chapter 4. And I will see you in the next one. Until then.